But it's been a very difficult week for Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party this week, and I think Darren Grimes might be making it an even more difficult week for them. It is high time for grime time.
Now, in the recent by-elections of Tamworth and Mid-Bedfordshire, the Conservatives witnessed a Staffordshire setback thanks to two-thirds of their 2019 voters deciding to play truant. In Tamworth, Labour secured a victory on a 35.87% turnout, with a mere 811 votes more than their previous outing. Mid-Bedfordshire echoed this narrative, with a dwindled turnout and Labour celebrating despite bagging 156 fewer votes than in 2019. Now, Sir Keir Starmer, he's not exactly the Pied Piper, is he? Yet Tories are nowhere to be seen rallying behind a man so power-hungry that he twice championed Jezza Corbyn, a man with a soft spot for Britain's foes, all to thwart our Brexit mandate. I remember the 2019 shift when my birthplace of Concert swapped its Labour red for Tory blue. Well, had hope, right? We had so much promise. But alas, you fast forward to today as you shiver in your abode, eyeballing up your soaring energy bill, courtesy of Theresa May and Bozer Johnson, their green escapades, or their net stupid as I call it, and voting seems somewhat futile for some people at home. With the NHS and your dentist appointments rescheduled more than a footy match, identity politics devouring the nation and the unity of it, and our shores being a hotspot for illegal migrants and those chanting sinister slogans in our cities. I understand your disillusionment. And let's not overlook the tax fiasco. Highest rates in decades, with nary a clue on where it's all funneled. Yet here we are, expected to march to the polls. It's a bleak forecast for the Prime Minister. If I was him, I'd be tempted to stay in the Middle East. He doesn't shake off the timidity, the bold moves we saw when he diluted Boris Johnson's green zealotry, or when he thwarted Nicky Sturgeon's perilous self-ID gender laws. They need a comeback. That was good stuff. With no luxury of time for dilly-dally on A-level reforms or banning ciggies for kids, debating so-called conversion therapy. These are all luxuries we don't have. It's a snail's race when we need a sprint to salvage what's left of our Great Britain. The era of slow and steady is over, and it's high time our leaders got the sodding memo, frankly. Now, Benjamin Butterworth, that must be music to your ears, actually. You must agree with every word.
I swear you get more Geordie every week. That's Look, I mean, full credit to you. You know, you looked at the two of the three biggest swings from Tory to Labour in post-war Britain and still managed to claim that it was a bad night for Labour.
Well, the turnout was lower than most parties that you throw.
Very good. But look, you know, the fact is that Labour's vote went up significantly, and both of those seats are not seats that the Labour Party needs to win to put Keir Starmer in Downing Street. If you were to have an equal swing across the country, then every seat with a Tory majority of 15,000 would have to go Labour. Mid-Beds had a 25,000 and Tamworth was 21,000. So this says that the Tories are leaving government, that they don't have a hope in hell. So actually, I'm quite glad that you say things like that and that you dig your heels in and ignore reality, because that just guarantees Keir Starmer will be a number 10.
So, Leo, are you following Sir Keir Starmer like a sort of lamb to the slaughter?
Well, people have described it as he's trying to carry a Ming vase without breaking it.
Yes.
You know, he's trying not to do anything radical. But actually, what we sort of need from him is to know what he stands for. At the moment, he seems to, you ask him what he stands for, and he's like, leave it with me. He goes and speaks to various focus groups and comes back and says, you know, I like whatever you like. And we really need to know, you know, what are his policies and what does he think? Because at the moment, he's not going to win the election. The Tories are going to lose it.
So do you think his only policy right now is not being the Conservative Party?
Exactly.
Can I just say that you often get that from people on the left of the Labour Party who seem to think that anyone, i.e. Jeremy Corbyn, would win when they wouldn't. Look, only 3 people have won a general election for the Labour Party. Only happened 3 times, and Keir Starmer is on course to be the 4th. So this idea that he's not really impressive, that he's not really changed anyone's mind, is complete nonsense. Because if it were that easy for Labour to win elections, they would have had more than 3 leaders do it.
Well, he should be making me want to vote for him, and he's
I'm not sure I'd want him in the Labour Party.
The interesting thing, for the Labour Party, you're talking a little bit about it later, so I don't want to spoil what you're going to say. But do you think the civil war within Labour Labour that's been promoted in the press recently, where actually a lot of the Muslim vote are unhappy with its stance on Israel. Is this going to become a problem for the Labour Party moving forward? And you're going to be addressing that.
Look, I think it's already a problem for the Labour Party. We've already seen we have seen Muslim councillors across the country resigning because of Keir Starmer's position on Israel-Palestine. But actually, with the cohort of people who he needs to win over at the next general election, i.e. Red Wall 2019 Tory voters, his position on the Israel-Palestine conflict is actually going to be quite helpful for that group of people who tend to be more pro-Israel. So that could actually be a net benefit for him. But when it comes to the Conservatives, as a Conservative myself, it's been a very disappointing week for us. The public are not buying what we're selling. And quite frankly, Rishi Sunak needs to get his act together, get the government's act together and start delivering on the 5 pledges that we pledged for the next general election. At the moment, it doesn't look like any of those are going to be achieved.
Reem?
I've got to say, I think Benjamin is somewhat overexcited by the prospect of these by-elections. I do think that the Conservative Party, again, haven't had any kind of ideological direction. I also think, Darren, you make a very important point here, that actually, even the Guardian front page today admitted that these swings last night were not very big. They were primarily as a result of Tory voters staying home rather than...
They were the second and third biggest swing in post-war history. What are you on about?
So the Conservatives, on the Guardian front page, that even admitted that the majorities were about 1,000. The swing was big, but the majority was very, very small.
Yeah, but that's because far fewer people voted, and that always happens in by-elections.
Exactly. So turnout was very low. Tory voters stayed home rather than Tory voters voting Labour, is my point. Ultimately, the Conservatives haven't been able to deliver on their 5 pledges. We've got the highest tax burden since the Second World War. We've got huge amounts of illegal migrants entering the country without any kind of basis for those individuals for where they're going to live or the infrastructure. But ultimately, the Labour Party haven't been able to convince those voters to return to their party.
But, I mean, you're a policy wonk, not to sound offensive. Do you actually know what the Labour Party's policies are? Well,
I know as much as you do, Darren, and I cannot tell you exactly what the Labour Party want to do. What I will say is the Labour Party have won over on housing. They've promised to build, I think it was 1.5 million houses. The Conservative Party failed on the housing crisis, and at least we're hearing some kind of direction on what I think is the largest political problem facing young people in this country today.